Breaking news, the Capitol on lockdown after shots fired minutes ago. That's a live look right now. One person in critical condition, the shooter or the alleged attacker being shot. We have much more about that developing situation. Madeline, of course, will continue to follow this story. We'll bring you live looks from the Capitol here throughout the day. We have continuing coverage right now at KVIA.com, as you mentioned. And we know that the president is at Camp David. He is not at the Capitol this afternoon. Let's go ahead and switch gears here. New at noon, migrants are continuing to flood the border. Officials say almost 172,000 migrants crossed or tried to cross the border in March. Now, that number includes 18,800 unaccompanied children. That is a new record. The largest number of unaccompanied children arrested by border agents in 2019 during the last crisis was just shy of 12,000. The Department of Health and Human Services now scrambling to open new sites intended to accommodate children. Customs and Border Protection transfers kids out of its detention centers to more suitable facilities that are run by HHS, but there has to be room for them. The White House acknowledges the high number of unaccompanied minors. Its coordinator of Southern Border says those numbers will eventually come down and that providing aid to the countries they are fleeing is the best way to help curb the flow. And people in New Mexico can now self-schedule an appointment for the second dose of their COVID vaccine. So this is for people who have registered on vaccinenm.org and have, of course, received the first shot. Now, the website system will allow people to select from second dose appointments that are available at several locations. The website also has a new section that addresses frequently asked questions about the vaccine. That includes things like eligibility, registration, and other health-related topics. We are having problems with your mic, Nicole. We will come back to you here shortly. So we know that it is going to be a nice warm day out there. We'll get back with Nicole in just a little bit. Let's go ahead and switch gears here to talk about new at noon. The economy added more than 900,000 jobs back in March. The Labor Department's jobs report shows 916,000 new jobs were filled last month. Now that's almost double the 468,000 that were added in February. The unemployment rate also dropped from 6.2% down to an even 6%. And some sectors are back to their pre-pandemic employment levels. The overall economy is still down about 8 million jobs. Investors typically respond favorably to positive employment news. However, the stock market is closed for today, which is Good Friday, a holiday. I think we've got Nicole back and ready to go here if we want to take a quick check back in with you. Hey, Nicole. There we go.
All right, lots of sunshine in the forecast.
All right, Nicole. And at any moment, the governor of New Mexico is expected to sign the bill that would legalize recreational marijuana. Now, when signed into law, the bill would allow people over 21 to buy marijuana by next April. The state would regulate sellers. The bill comes after a two-day special legislative session. Now, that still has state lawmakers divided.
Hotels are going to be running because this is one of their biggest cash crops. And it's one of the easiest ways in which they make money. They're not going to go away. They're going to turn into something else, and we'll have to deal with that later.
With New Mexico being at the top of driving under the influence, New Mexico top of crime, New Mexico with deep poverty problems, I think we have to ask ourselves whether making it easier and more accessible to get high, whether that's a solution to our problem.
And the State Legislative Finance Committee told ABC 7 that its study projects close to $250 million of sale in the first year. There will be a 25 to 26% tax on it, and that's expected to bring in over $30 million in state tax revenue, over $16 million in local tax revenue with the first year of sales alone. And now to what legalizing marijuana could mean for Texas, especially here in the borderland. The police chief in Anthony, Texas, told ABC 7 the state line actually crosses through some people's living rooms. He said many people already struggle to know where New Mexico ends and Texas actually starts, but the confusion won't stop his department from enforcing the law, and the same is true in El Paso.
We still have to do our job, and we cannot, for the lack of better words, slap them on the hands and say, okay, don't do it again. They have to be held accountable to know that where the state line is and where you can possess.
We may be a 5-minute drive from Sunland Park, where if it passes, it'll be legal, but that stays there. Anybody bringing marijuana back across into Texas will, and found to be in possession of it will be arrested.
Now, ABC7 learned officers can't set up checkpoints, but if they do smell weed during a traffic stop, they do have a probable cause to search the car and test for marijuana in your system. That could lead to a DWI charge. And in other national news, we now turn to the Derek Chauvin trial. It's happening in Minneapolis. The former police officer accused of killing George Floyd last Memorial Day.
Powerful.
Welcome back to ABC 7 at noon. Of course, still following that live breaking news with the Capitol on lockdown. That is another angle for you right there. Capitol Police setting up right there. We know that one person was shot. They had a weapon and rammed a barrier at the Capitol. Looks a little bit calmer now, but still obviously a long way to go. We know 2 officers hurt, 3 people in the hospital, and that driver critically hurt. So we'll continue to follow this for you throughout the day and take a live look at some other angles in just a little bit. But we had the open there. Okay, now we're looking outside.
Off, Nick.
It did throw me off. I'm not gonna lie. It's powerful. Nicole,
It's powerful.
We've got a powerful message to send. I mean, those winds this morning, Nicole, my hair was going everywhere.
Yeah, it was a bit windy.
And a Democrat and a Republican in Congress have come together now to tackle the situation at the U.S. southern border. They have proposed a bipartisan bill. It would address both funding and resource shortfalls. The legislation would establish a $1 billion fund for the Department of Homeland Security and other federal agencies. To gain access to those funds, the agencies would have to develop a plan to respond to the growing number of migrants crossing the U.S.-Mexico border. They say if passed, that funding could prevent children from being held in border custody for longer than they should.
This is ABC 7 with breaking news.
Good afternoon. We're in the ABC 7 Alert Center following that breaking news out of Washington, D.C. Let's go straight to that live shot. This is brand new video. They've just zoomed out what we were looking at during that commercial break. They had zoomed in, and it's tough to make out. There's a blue car on the other side of that barrier. It appears that that could have been the car that rammed into a police barrier. If you're just joining us right now, we know that a vehicle was rammed there. 2 police officers outside the U.S. Capitol were involved. There's the live look right there. That's what we're talking about. It appears that that's the vehicle involved. We know the person driving that, they had a weapon. They have been reported, ABC is now reporting that that person was shot and killed after being with authorities there. And you can see from this live shot a lot of activity. This all started about an hour ago. And just a few minutes ago, we're still learning that information. And again, we know that the person involved in this has been killed by Capitol Police. Still a long way to go with this, Madeline, before we figure out everything. But we're going to keep it live here throughout the newscast and bring you those updates, of course. And the president was not at the Capitol. I will say that. Staff members are now being told that they cannot exit. They can't enter the building. The president was at Camp David, and of course, complete coverage throughout the newscast. If you want to get those alerts right to your phone, download the KVIA News app. You'll get those alerts when we go live, when we take special reports, and when we get new information. Welcome back. We're still following that breaking news, of course, out of Washington, D.C. Police say a man rammed that car into 2 Capitol Police and hit 2 Capitol Police officers near a barricade outside the U.S. Capitol before being shot to death. We know now several lawmakers tweeting about the incident. We know Veronica Escobar tweeting just a few minutes ago, praying for the 2 U.S. Capitol Police officers that were injured in today's attack. Senator Ted Cruz also tweeting about the attack as well, praying for the swift recovery of the U.S. Capitol Police officers. We'll have another live look coming up in just a few minutes. Let's go ahead and take a look outside with Nicole.